Hello and welcome to episode 350 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place where small press comics make a big noise. You'll notice I'm not Vince. He's had to step out for tonight as he's a bit poorly. Don't worry, he'll be back next week. But this is a big show this week. We've hit an anniversary, 350 regular episodes.
That's amazing. Good, isn't that incredible?
We do actually get a bit of shit for people saying, well, actually, you're on 360 odd.
Yeah, I think we did some specials, didn't we, or something? Yeah.
So,
and we don't care.
No, we're counting this one as 350.
Yeah,
and we've got something special planned, but we'll come back to that. Not only that, we're on week 2 of our March Manga Month. My name is Dan Butcher, the creator of the webcomic Vanguard. Alongside me stands a bronze titan, the man who never irons anything, Tony Esmond.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Yeah,
I know it's in Vince's script. It says, say something stupid about Tony for the weekly script. But yeah, you changed it. You put something nice in. That's nice.
Yeah, boosting him up.
Yeah.
Joining us on this merry marathon into manga is not one, but 2 special guests. First up, we have the creator of Skelly Bob, friend of the show and comic connoisseur, Tom Curry.
Hello.
Hello, Tom.
Hello.
Yeah, last minute addition, but very welcome. Yeah. Thank you for coming on, mate.
And last but not least, artist of legacy and Know Your Monsters and the upcoming Dragonball, Zak Simmonds Hurn.
Hello.
Hello, mate.
Hey, Zach.
Hello, fellas.
Zach, can I just say, you've got quite a fucking cool name. From somebody who's called Anthony, which is really annoying by people who phone up and say, is that Anthony? Like these cold callers. Being somebody called Zach and then the double-barreled name is very cool, my friend.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, much better. Daniel and Anthony, and then you've got, Thomas. But Zach is a much cooler name, 3 letters. It's a bit like being called Topol or something like that. Share. It's cool, isn't it? Can you just go with Zach as a pen name?
For it, it was, it was foisted upon me. So, I can't complain. Yeah.
You were risen to the challenge.
You were found in a rocket ship in a field of wheat. Yeah.
Obviously, with my surname Butcher, there's a kind of there's a certain bit of baggage that comes with that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've got a guy coming in, Dan Butcher. Oh, okay.
Sounds like a right lively bloke.
Yeah, I know what we're going to get from this. It's like, no, you don't. I'm way worse.
I get people saying to me, I get people ringing up and going, oh, Anthony Osmond? Fuck off.
Read the letters.
Yes, thank you.
There's loads of other creators who've got strange surnames as well. Slightly ham-fisted that one.
Oh, we're so good at this when Vince is
great.
Comic House.
Hey.
Comic House is an indie comic marketplace of a difference. There's a huge selection of titles in a database, and if you self-publish, then you list your book on there for free and start selling straight away. They have a featured section on their site and also on their app. It's like Netflix for comics. It's only £3 a month, and you get access to a massive library of digital indie comics. What great stuff can we find on there, Tony?
Well, I thought we'd do the top 10. I thought we could do like a top 10 of what's on there. So the top 10 are as follows. I've not heard of this comic before. The 77. That's at the number 1 spot.
That was a new one on me.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Meanwhile, which is an anthology, which has Strange Haven in. Number 3 is Teddy Boy, which we talked about years ago. Do you remember? A couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
I think it's like a Chinese series, isn't it? Is that right? I think Pete explained it.
Yes.
Number 4 is The Bad Bad Place by David Hine and Mark Stafford. Obviously, Dave's an ex-guest of ours, and he's top writer, and Mark's great. Peace of Mind is next. The Last Homicide. I think that's by, what's his name, the writer? What's his name again?
Oh.
Frank the writer. That's it. The Hammer, Volume 1. And then we've got another issue of Meanwhile, and then something called Diversions. Men and Monsters from 2020 to present. So that's the top 10. Maybe we could do that every so often, just give a little shout out to what the most popular comics are on there. Yeah, there you go.
So if you want to go on,
you got something.
You've got something to say about that for Comic House.
Yeah.
If you want to find out more about what's in the top 10 and beyond, you can start a 14-day free trial and dive headfirst into the amazing world of small press, which we talk about every week. Go check out comichouse.com. And the people at Comic House have extended us a prize, haven't they?
Yeah, to celebrate the 350th episode, which is very kind of. We actually got 2 competitions on this show, haven't we, Dan?
Yes,
so and I get one now.
Yeah, I've got the question for it, but I've forgotten the actual prize. It's a
3-month subscription to you
Yes.
or a friend is up for grabs if you can answer the following question, which Mr. Butch is going to pose.
Yes. On Comic House, you can read the adventures of Jake Cardigan in the Tech War Chronicles.
Favourite of ours.
Right. The question is, who wrote the Tech War Chronicles? The book you can find on Comic House. And a little tip, we want 2 names.
So this is
2 authors.
Who are the creators of Tech War as a whole, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, the Tech War Chronicles. Who wrote those comics that you can find on Comic House? There's 2 authors of those comics.
Brilliant.
And we want both.
And
obviously, you're gonna know one.
You can't enter the competition, Tom.
No, I know. But if I was able to go into the competition, where would I send my answer through to?
Oh,
Great
point.
question, Tom. You can either send it through to us on the socials, or you can email it through to us on this email that I'm going to give you right now, which is awesomecomicspod@gmail.com, or you can do it on Twitter, which is @theawesomepod, or facebook.com/awesomecomicspodcast.
Or even on the Slack. If you've just got us on the Slack, then you can just send us the answer there. And what we're going to do is we're going to put them in a hat and pull the name out next week. So even if you've got a Comic House subscription already, it's worth doing because you can get a free one for your friend. You know, like comic people sometimes have friends, don't they? Yeah, not just people on Twitter that they speak to, but actually genuine friends.
Style out and say, I was talking about that Comic House app, and I think I really like you. I've sorted out a gift for you.
All right, darling. How about this?
Also, do you know what's coming up soon? Mother's Day. And what better gift for Mother's Day than the gift of 3 months of the Comic House?
Yes, Mother, you can read comics on there, including the Hall Chronicles, which me and Tom Curry were involved in. The mums love the Hall Chronicles, don't they?
God,
it's a favourite. Yeah, I've got to speak to you about that. I've got to speak to you about that, Tom, in a bit, actually.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, and Dan knows something about it as well. Sorry, Zach, you're
still
our friend.
My wife. That's Freudian slip. She's kind of got sick of having to do the birthday cards and all those cards this year, and I've got to do them all.
Really?
It's a burden, man.
Your missus never sent me a card ever.
No. I have sent you. Yeah, I've not sent you a card either. I sent you a gift or something.
Yeah, we send a gift, don't we? Yeah.
But I've got to do the Mother's Day cards. I've got 3 Mother's Day cards to get. One from my son to my wife, one from me to my mum, and oh God. Yeah, so it's an absolute peril doing cards. That's why I'm kind of petitioning to get rid of cards. Let's never send them anymore.
Yeah. I was I was trying. I used to have to go to different shops to get Valentine's Day cards. Because sometimes I got up to 10 cards, didn't I? To send, and so I just get them all in the same shop now. I don't.
You get a lot more
don't care.
on the other side, didn't you, T?
Yeah,
than coming in.
Yeah.
So, they're cultivating like a section of rainforest for just only.
Well, we were talking about getting hand jobs during movies earlier, weren't we? That's a sort of similar thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very similar thing. But enough of this. Let's spin this round. We're talking about chopping up trees for comics now.
He's running with this, Tom. He's doing well. He's running with this, isn't he? Zach, this is smooth as fuck. You must be so proud to be here on this monumental episode.
Oh, I am. It's incredible. Vince would be so proud.
What would Vince do? That's what goes through our minds.
What would Vince do?
Yeah, that's all that goes through our minds.
With this being the second week of our manga march, we're going to be talking more manga, obviously. And we're talking about shonen. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Which we have a definition for. I'm not sure if
I have it ready.
Yes.
So shonen manga is defined as Japanese comics mainly marketed to young teen male readership, ideally boys between 12 and 18 years old. Shonen in Japanese can mean either boy or youth. There you go. There's it's the most popular manga in Japan, most popular, biggest selling. There are numerous magazines dedicated purely to it. You've got magazines such as Weekly Shonen Jump, Jump Square, Bisatsu Shonen Magazine, Weekly Shonen Sunday. So these are just full of shonen stories. Now, you had a look at circulation, didn't you, Tom, before we came on?
I did, yes, I did. I did have a quick look at circulation. Let me just get it up again.
Yeah.
But I was looking at the numbers particularly for it. Thank you. I was looking at the numbers for Shonen Jump specifically.
Yeah.
Looking at their last sort of
circulation.
Range.
Yeah.
Circulation range for the magazine sales was 7.5 million, or just a little bit over that.
Jesus.
What is that, monthly?
That was magazine sales For the monthly one, for the weekly circulation, we're looking at around about 3 million.
Wow.
Jesus,
isn't that good?
Wow.
Yeah. So Borenson's and Tetsuo Hara's Fist of the North Star and Akira Toriyama's Dragonball are credited as setting the trends for manga. Now, I have a list of popular ones here, which I'm gonna run past you, Zach and Tom, because I know that you're big fans of this area of comics, and I know it certainly influences you, Zach, doesn't it, in your work?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great excuse drawing children's comics. The fact that I'm so into Japanese children's comics.
Yeah. So here are some of them. We've got One Piece. I know you're a big fan of One Piece. Is that right, Zach?
Oh, absolutely love it. Yeah, it's one of my favourites. I've sort of got off it a little bit just purely because I was reading it weekly and I just wanted to give like a bit of a buffer so I can just read a whole chunk at once. But
right.
Oh my god, got absolutely hooked on One Piece. It's brilliant. I think it's quite a strange one. It starts off like it's sort of hard to tell where it's going. I think you need to give it like a few. Like as with a lot of manga, you need to give it like a few installments until it really sort of gets its teeth into you. But when it does, when it really starts hitting, it's superb.
So I'm guessing you read it on the Shonen Jump app, do you? Or
yes, yeah. I mean, I started off collecting the books, and then that became a very expensive hobby. So yeah, I had to switch to reading it digitally because it's. I think they're up to like 90 something now, volume 90 something.
I think I've got a feeling they've released what the cover looks like for 100, haven't they? I think.
Have they? Okay,
I think
yeah,
so.
I've missed that, but yeah.
Over what kind of time period have you been reading One Piece?
I started reading it probably about like 2008. So
wow. Okay.
It's been going for like a long time by then because it's it's like been running for like over 20 years, hasn't it now, hasn't it?
Wow.
Bloody hell.
It's been going a long time.
It's been going a long time.
What is its conceit? I've never read it, guys. What is it about?
So it's like a strange sort of fantasy world. Basically, it's about a gang of pirates. It follows the exploits of the main character, whose name is Monkey D. Luffy, or Luffy, which is just the weirdest name. I found the whole thing quite off-putting for a while until I actually started reading it, and I was like, oh no, it's actually really good.
Right.
So it sounds pretty weird. But yeah, so he wants to be the king of the pirates in this bizarre fantasy world. He gains the power of rubber, where he can like stretch like rubber, like Mr. Fantastic, but he uses it for much more like action-y purposes, like stretching his fist back and then just like snapping them like an elastic band into someone's face,
right?
That sort of thing. But his powers come at the expense of being able to swim, which is obviously like a bit of a downside as a pirate. So the whole thing is like an epic where each massive story arc, he basically like accumulates like a new crew member. As he's sort of fighting new foes, but the whole appeal of it is it's just a very weird, wacky sense of humour. It's like genuinely hilarious at points.
Yeah,
but also some of the most incredible action scenes that I've ever seen in comics or in any medium. To be honest, it's amazing. Like the action is just bananas. Like he can draw action scenes like very few other people.
Cool. So in hand in hand with anime, there's I'm guessing there's anime of this as well, is there? Mm-hmm. God, I sound like such an old bloke, don't I, on this episode?
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of it. Yes.
There is.
Okay.
One of the things that kind of got me is that this kind of action that the Shonen was able to do and illustrate, like it was absolutely fantastic. And only relatively recently, I would say maybe if The Matrix was the first one to sort of start putting in this kind of these effects that could actually handle what they would do in manga. And
well, we saw that with Domu, didn't we? You know, Otomo's Domo, where they're running down the side of buildings as if it's like, you know, and we only really saw that happening, didn't we, around the Matrix kind of stuff.
And we know like the Wachowskis were very heavily influenced by manga and anime.
Right.
You can, if you've got the making of the art book, they've got like Jeff Darrow stuff. Who's the other artist? Steve
Scrooge.
Yeah,
cool. I like him. Yeah,
and there's a lot of sort of like manga and anime stylings and that sort of stuff where Agent Smith is like punching through the walls and stuff. That's straight out of like manga. And I don't know, like I feel like the manga and anime was like the progenitor for all that kind of stuff, and they're kind of lifting from it, as it were. But as a Westerner, if you was going to come across a manga book, it's more likely going to be a shonen one.
Does seem that
in
way,
the UK at least.
Yeah.
Would you say that's true?
I think so. Yeah, I think they're certainly the ones that dominate sales-wise in Japan. I mean, I don't know right now, but I know for years One Piece was like one of the highest-selling book series ever. It was like selling outrageous numbers. So I think those, because they go on so long and they get so popular, and they've got their animated series as well, they become like almost impossible to miss. You find them anywhere.
Yeah. I suppose I first saw them as cosplayers at MCMs and things. I'm guessing is where I first saw it.
Yeah.
It's a popular.
I've definitely seen a Luffy cosplay or two.
Yeah. Is that the Free Hug people? Is that them?
No, that's Studio Ghibli.
Right. Okay.
I can't remember his name. It's from it's one of the films. Unfortunately, I can't remember which one it is, but I do know the character you mean.
Yeah. What about you, Tom? I know you're a big fan of Shonen Manga. Is there any particular ones that you really like that sort of you've been reading for years?
I would say, do you know, I've been relatively recently got into it. So for me, for example, I actually came from the anime of My Hero Academia, which I mentioned in the last episode.
Okay.
And how can I say, I got frustrated by the release of the anime, and I thought I'd read the manga to sort of get more up to speed.
Right.
So that's been something I've been watching for maybe 5+ years now. And I was like, actually, I wanted to just get myself straight into the comic side of it.
Yeah. And that's on the Shonen Jump app as well, isn't it?
It is,
Academia.
And again, but what I kind of enjoyed about that was how that's changed over time as well. Where that was, where it started, and where it is now is a completely different place, which I kind of enjoyed that because it has that time to extend out over a longer period. It just has time to grow and develop, and the characters at the beginning are not the same.
Fuck me, One Piece is on chapter 1043, right?
Yep.
And My Hero Academia is at chapter 347. Jesus Christ.
They've been going a while. They get some pages under them. I think what you said, Zach, like the stuff that comes out more recently, that sometimes it takes a little while to find their feet. I found that the more modern stuff, they seem to have considered that a little more, and it kind of hits the ground running, like One Punch Man, Demon Slayer, and My Hero. They kind of know what they're doing pretty much from the off, apart from a few missteps. But like, I remember reading, still a big fan of Berserk and Fist and the North Star. It takes them a little while to find their feet, but once they do, they're off to the races.
Okay.
Like there's stuff that the characters do in the first couple of books. You're like, well, it's a bit out of character. It doesn't really fit in with what comes later on, but it kind of works. But yeah, they sort of find out what they want to do with it as they're making it, which
Absolutely.
is an interesting approach.
I think a big part of that is that the whole manga scene over there is ultra competitive. Like breaking in is so difficult. And in issues of Shonen Jump, I think it came up last week in your chat with Helen McCarthy, and like most of the manga anthologies that come out weekly, which will have like installments of, say, One Piece, My Hero Academia, like they'll come out in like a big anthology book, like the size of a phone book, weekly. But they have like popularity cards, so the readers will vote on their favorites. And if something, even if it's been in there for like a long time, if One Piece started getting really, really bad, I mean, I think it sells enough books now that it's probably bulletproof. But but most series, if they start doing badly in the ratings, in the reader polls, they will just get the authors to wrap it up and finish it.
Fair enough.
So you have to sort of hit the ground running, capture people immediately with like an intriguing concept. You just got to grab them straight away and just keep the pace up. So I think that's definitely created this trend for like all series of just launching at 1,000 miles per hour.
And that's what we were talking. I think just before you came on the line, actually, Zach, we were talking a bit about that. And British Comics used to do that. So 2000 AD used to have that little card, and you would put your top 5 in there. And often Dread wasn't the number 1 on it, back then. And it's showing that. And Japan still has this, where comics is a mass medium, isn't it? It's for everyone. It's the Coronation Street of comics over there almost. It's sort of, rather than we kind of see comics now as this sort of niche graphic novel thing. What is it? Pat calls it the Hamsterization of comics, doesn't he? It's for everyone, isn't it? And that's part of it.
I think a big part is how affordable the books are and how portable they are. They're designed to be taken with you. Like they're really small, but they're cheap. They're printed on cheap paper. They're black and white. So the whole sort of mass market approach is just like built into into the model, and I think it really enables them to just experiment with loads of different things, and it's enabled various different genres, and an enormous amount of genres to flourish, because they just cater to literally everybody.
The amount of magazines. I mean, I'm desperate to go out there and just look at like a newsstand, and see all the magazines there. Do
you know what the kind of the attitude, obviously, for reading manga and stuff on the trains and in public transport and out in the public generally is kind of, that's fine. What do you know what the kind of attitude is to creators of it? And say he was like, oh, my cousin Johnny, he's going to become a mangaka. He spends all day and night. Is that a kind of profession that's kind of
respected
looked down on, or yeah?
I don't know 100%. I mean, from what I understand, if you're like a top manga creator, you are like you get way more respect probably over there than you would in like the American scene. Like,
right.
Okay.
I think Helen mentioned last week about what's the fella's name? Completely blanking.
Mizuki or
what did he create?
It's the guy who did Pluto and 20th Century Boys.
I can't remember.
Completely blanking.
Yeah,
I don't know his name. But about him like turning up on, be on like a chat show or on like TV shows, just talking about his stuff. And it's Naoki Urasawa. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
He'll just be about everywhere. I think he's got some like video series where he just talks to other manga creators and they like discuss it all in great detail, like their approach to the art and all this. So
you can find a lot of that stuff on YouTube. I enjoy watching some of that. If I've got like time to like put my head up from the keyboard and actually read the words on the screen, it's good. Yeah, I really do like that stuff. And I think for me the whole attitude, the work ethic over there, I think it's kind of like if your son's going to be a manga creator, you think, well, I'm never going to see him. He's going to work 16 hours a day. He's going to eat his lunch at his table, and because they work them because those weekly installments, they're not drawing themselves. But I know a number of them work in studios, don't they, Zach? I think they have people doing backgrounds and stuff. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So I mean, they're turning out like 20-page installments each week, which is like an American comic each week, and obviously, depending on like the style of the creator, the detail varies enormously. But some of them are just absolutely insane. Like the level of detail and the precision and the care and attention to detail in the work is absolutely staggering. And obviously they've got like a team of assistants that help them and help out doing backgrounds or like filling in patterns or things like that. And I think it varies depending on the different creators how much control they sort of relinquish to their assistants. Like some of them will just let them do like a lot of the stuff, and they'll just focus on like doing the layouts and doing like finishing and bits and bobs. But I know for One Piece, Oda, the creator, I don't know how to pronounce his first name, Eiichiro Oda, I'm going to say.
Okay.
I've heard that apparently he insists on like drawing all the characters himself. Maybe it's just the faces, but he won't let his assistants draw the faces at least. It might be the whole bodies, but I know it's certain faces he has to draw. And it really helps when it feels consistent the whole way through because of that.
Yeah, there is that consistency to these long series. You do see it a lot, don't you? Yeah. The other thing I know we'll get back to some of our favourite titles in a second, Zach, but one of the things I was thinking about as I was watching some of your how to draw videos and stuff today, and I was thinking, have you ever pitched your art to a Japanese studio or to a Japanese company at all?
I haven't. I've definitely thought that I would love to do that.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if they'd really how interested in my style they'd be if it would just be seen as too Western. I think I think it's very, very difficult for non-Japanese people to sort of break in over there. Well, certainly Westerners anyway. I'm not sure about other Asian creators.
I'm guessing it would mean moving there and stuff, wouldn't it? I'm guessing.
I think so. I mean, as far as I know, the only Western creator who's actually managed to do it was Felipe Smith. Do you know him? He did the Ghost Rider, Robbie Ray's Ghost Rider.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know.
Yes.
He was the writer behind that. But before that, for years, he was living in Japan and he was writing and drawing his own manga series, which was like collected into books and like running in the anthology comics. So as far as I know, he's the only person who's actually pulled it off. So I think it's it's very, very difficult. Although there's a lot of Westerners in anime, doing like layouts and animation, but in manga it's quite different.
Oh wow, okay.
I think you have to have such a good grasp of Japanese, like just the language, in order to cope, because you've got to go through so many editorial meetings and all sorts.
That's something I was reading about as well, is the role of the editor in there. I was watching a YouTube video about that, because they have very close contact with their creators. You know, over here, editors, you might not even actually ever meet your editor, but it seems that they have like twice weekly meetings and stuff with them, you know.
They do, yeah. I mean, most of my knowledge from this has come from a manga series which is on the Shonen Jump app, which I really recommend, called Baku.
Okay.
If any of you've heard of it. So it's by the two creators who did Death Note, which you probably will have heard of.
Yeah.
Very popular. Mm-hmm. So after they finished that, they wanted to do this series called Baku, which is basically about these two high school kids who decide they want to break into Shonen Jump, which is like where the actual comic Baku runs. So it's like following them trying to achieve their dream, but it's very much like an inside look at how the whole process works, because it's them trying to, you know, get through, not being good enough, getting knocked back from editors. You see them like in the editorial meetings, and then, you know, don't want to give too much away as to how it goes in case anybody reads it. But it's an incredibly fascinating insight, and it shows the whole thing of.
I've got it open now. It's lovely. Yeah,
a lot of the big manga creators will start as assistants to other creators first, and they'll like learn the ropes as like an understudy, and then they'll work on their own manuscript pitches in the meantime, submit them to editors. Yeah. So it's really, really interesting. I'd say definitely if you're interested in finding out a bit more about it.
I've opened a random page in chapter 1, and there's a picture of a sort of attractive schoolgirl, and it says, "Love is just painful and agonising." That's true, isn't it?
Very insightful.
Yes, yeah. That's profound.
Back to pegging again, Tom. I know we talked about that pre-credits. Yeah.
So you've got the new series coming up, Zach. Presumably the manga styling is going to work its way into that. Is that correct? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm currently working on a new series for the Phoenix comic, Dragonball. So that will be, well, I'm drawing the second episode of the first 4-part story at the moment. So it should be out in like a couple of months' time, I think.
Oh, nice one.
But yeah, absolutely. I think anything that I do that's like action or adventure, like there's always going to be like a big sort of manga influence. But I always try and like blend it with a bit of like, because I love Disney stuff as well, so a bit of like a more cartoony Disney style as well.
Yeah.
In terms of action and things like that, I think just manga creators just do the best action scenes in the world of comics. So I think I kind of think not looking at that for inspiration just seems mad when you've got all that great stuff out there to look at and study. I think I just have to. I
think we mentioned this on the previous show, but like Danny Warren Johnson obviously takes like his cues from shonen work, I would say.
Absolutely,
definitively. Mm-hmm. But like God, his stuff just explodes off the fucking page. It's amazing.
Yeah, Edison Neo was talking a bit about him, wasn't he, on the Slack last week, saying the same. Yeah.
Well, Edison, like his work is just the same. Like he sent through No Brainer 3. And that's just some of the sequences in that are absolutely eye-popping.
That energy they managed to get into it. I mean, there's a lot of Western artists who can draw the physical form brilliantly, and it all looks very technically. But you need energy to a page as well, don't you? You need that extra something to it, and they've really got that down, haven't they? Manga, especially Shonen Manga, I think they really can show it. Yeah,
it's the motion, it's the movement amongst the environment they're placed in.
Yeah.
But often you'll be reading something and it spreads. Like often you'll be reading a fight in a shonen manga and it'll just spread out over like almost a whole city. And you'll see things moving and changing, and it's that kind of like physicality. It's really hard to capture.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. Can you just before we move off it, Zach? Can you give us a hint what the new book's about, the new story's about in the Phoenix?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's it follows this group called the Dragonguard who ride dragons in space. Fighting giant evil robot spiders and their evil Lord Volcanox. So it's very much like Saturday morning cartoon from the 80s sort of vibes going on there, like very like bit of like Jason the Wheeled Warriors sort of thing. Cool. Thundercats.
So was it like 4 pages in each issue, or 5 pages, or something like that? Is it? Or
I think it varies a bit. I think the first episode was 6 pages, and then the next ones are all like 5 pages each.
Right. And what do they do, the Phoenix? Do they collect that at the end? Is that part of the thing, or is that decided later? Or
it's decided later. Yeah, I hope they will. But yeah, well, it really depends on like reader reception and how well it does and things like that. But yeah, fingers crossed. That'd be great if it does.
Oh man, it sounds amazing. I love your stuff, and that's going to be great. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, cool. So let's recommend something else. So I've got a little list of Shonen Manga here. I thought I might mention some of them. So obviously the one at the moment, there's two as far as I can see at the moment. You've got Demon Slayer and Chainsaw Man. Demon Slayer is just the biggest comic in the history of the world, seemingly at the moment, isn't it? Isn't it what caused the paper shortage or something, as I understand it? Is that right? Yeah.
I certainly had trouble getting hold of it when we were in lockdown. I couldn't get it for love nor money for my son.
And the much quoted fact we say, Dan, isn't it? There was more issues sold of the first English language volume of that than there were comics sold in the mainstream American.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's quite telling.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I've not read it yet, but I clearly need to hop on the Shonen Jump app.
You've read through it, haven't you, Tom?
I have gone through it. It's really good. It's really flipping good. It's obviously all on the Shonen. All of it's on the Shonen Jump app, but I think what that did really well was there was there's fantastic Netflix tie-in at the same time.
Yeah.
So basically, that kind of like fed back into the comics, and hence people wanting to read it. And yeah, it's really well done.
I think they hit that golden spot, didn't they? This is, as I understand it, why there was such a big explosion. Is Netflix stuck a load of anime on, and they produced a load of anime or translated a load, and they stuck it all on their app. Around the same time as a lot of the books got released, and around the same time as we got lockdown. So you got all these kids going nuts for it, and just buying things out.
You would get something like a cartoon or a film come out, and then you're like, right, I want to buy the ancillary stuff. Yeah. But with the manga, and the anime, it comes out, and then you've got years of books that have already been produced. Yeah. All this stuff's out there for them to get into immediately. So it's like a massive untapped resource. It's like, oh, I really like One Piece. It's like, oh, bloody hell, here's all these books, here's all these animation.
Yeah, One Piece is a hobby in its own at the moment, isn't it? You got anime, you got everything, yeah. Unlike, Marvel, cough, cough, Doctor Strange is dead in the comics, just before the movie comes out. Ideal situation.
I know it's a bit of an aside, but I felt so sorry for that artist who did that artwork on that, the latest Doctor Strange with the Clea as the Sorcerer Supreme. And you look at his pencils on Instagram, and they're just these are fantastic. It's absolutely top work. And then they've got some inker who's just seems to have rushed over the top and just.
Oh, have they? I've not seen that.
I have to show you the images. I posted up in the Slack. They put the inkers going over the top and absolutely slaughtered it. It looks. Remember that guy Vince Coletta?
He used to rub out Kirby's pencils. Yeah.
Essentially similar to that, and just tragic, absolutely tragic.
That's a shame.
That's an aside.
Yeah, good. So
you won't get that in manga.
No, you don't get that in Demon Slayer. So, Tom, what is Demon Slayer like Edo period? Is it that sort of thing? Is it or?
Yes, I mean it's kind of slightly elsewhere Edo period in terms of there are. It is set in that period, but there are demons around, which there is a core of people who go around and slay them, for want of a better word for it.
Right.
And then the core of it is a brother-sister story that is exceptionally well told.
Okay.
And that's really there's a human core amongst all the fantasy and fighting and that kind of jazz, which really works well. And then you add into that a central character who is growing and developing and becoming a better version of themselves. It goes along.
Is that on the Shonen Jump app? Is it?
It's all
cool. I must read that.
And it's also, and what's also nice is the mainline story is all finished. So there's a nice, neat bit to read, and then there's spin-offs coming off as well.
Oh, right, okay. So Tom is actually sort of strangely partly responsible for this month because he's the one that made me go on the Shonen Jump app, and then I have to update him regularly. He says, "How you getting on?"
What are you drinking?
And then I tell him what I've been reading. Yeah. And it's been well worth it. Mate, talk about money, bang for your money.
It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, and again, I think where these Shonen stories do exceptionally well is how human the cast seem, even amongst this sort of incredible world. So the other one you mentioned was Chainsaw Man, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Which same sort of thing, right? There is a human character in the center of this story who's been put through the ringer, and And Zach, have you read that one particularly?
I've read the first few back when it started coming out. I kind of got up to date with it, and then for whatever reason, I just kind of forgot to actually get back on it. So I've got a whole load of it to read. So
that's very cool, isn't it?
I'm up to date, but I've read the start, and it was very good.
Yeah,
those those covers for Chainsaw Man are fantastic.
Oh, they're lovely.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
So he's got a chainsaw in his head. Is that right?
In
Yeah.
his head, in his arms, in his legs.
Anywhere else?
Wow.
What I really like, he's got a rip cord, like the starter cord in his chest, doesn't he?
Yes,
So he
he
like
does.
yanks out
Yeah.
to kind of get it fired up, and it's like, what a great little touch that is.
There's
Amazing toy.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a recurring motif that you see in Chainsaw Man and also in Kaiju number 8 and also in the comic I'm going to recommend in the end of the show of a what begins as a standard human character being changed in some way by either a external force or an experience or something else, and then again part of it being our point of view character for a new world, and they're becoming not quite human in the way they hold themselves from that point forward. So you see it in Chainsaw Man. Same thing in Kaiju number 8, which it does a really good job of exploring the sort of the lost humanity as things change for that character over the course of the comic.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I must get on that one. Is that one on the app as well, Tom, is it?
Which one, sorry?
Chainsaw Man.
It is, yep. It's all
Oh,
there.
is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
all of
okay.
those on it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I found really weird is 11 O'Clock Comics do like a book of the month where you sort of read along with them. And they did Fist of the North Star Volume 1 recently. And I hadn't really read it. I think I'd looked at it. And they reminded me, because I went back and read it sort of to read along with what they were talking about. And it's basically Mad Max.
Yeah.
It's almost
Mad
like they've
Max.
ripped off Mad Max, isn't it, a bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a screen shot I've shared. I saw it on an anime and something forum, and essentially it's like all the stars of the 80s as the characters in Fist of the North Star, and they've just taken, like, Stallone is Kenshiro.
Right.
He's got that kind of like the drop in the lip that Stallone has, and walks around with sometimes you see him with those big like 80s like the mirror shades on.
Yeah.
And there's loads of them. Like there was the wrestler in the 80s is Van Vader. He pops up as like one of the bad guys, but lots of people are like, oh, you can see they've taken direct thing from it. And essentially it's like superpowered martial artists in Mad Max 2. And
Right. Yeah.
away you go.
And then, of course, they made an American movie of it, didn't they? I watched.
That's a travesty. That's a travesty.
I'll tell you what was a really good movie that I watched, American version of it, was Dragonball. Did you see that movie?
The Western film one.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be.
It's terrible. I fell
supposed
asleep
to be
in the
terrible.
cinema, and my son took pictures of me asleep with my own phone, which he thought was funny in that film.
When that or the
I
manga stuff
started
was.
watching that. Sorry.
Go on, Zach.
No, I was going to say, I did start watching that, but I couldn't get very far in it. I think it was on one of the streaming apps at one point. I was like, oh, no.
The dude's got like hair glued on his head. He's got that sort of...
Yeah. It is peculiar. It's just so unrelated to the comic, really. It's just about... I don't know. I don't really even understand how it's an adaptation of Dragon Ball, because it just seems like
That's not it.
it's just trying to avoid everything to do with Dragon Ball.
I'm going to watch it now.
You know,
Not
when like
fall
all the manga videos were coming out, I think one of the second set of them to come out, one of them included Fist of the North Star, the movie.
Yeah.
And I got that on the Saturday and watched it through and just absolutely like, what the fuck is this? This is unbelievable. Like people blowing up when you punch them. And the translation was like off. They just did it for like, so this one-off movie kind of makes sense, and it didn't really. And in the evening, my family took us all to go and see Starlight Express.
Nice.
And the cultural sort of juxtaposition of those two fucking entities.
What a Sunday.
Yeah. I remember my whole boarding house from boarding school went to see Starlight Express, and everyone sat down, the music started, then everyone in my boarding house left and just walked around Soho looking at naked ladies. You know, as a bunch of 16-year-olds in school uniforms. Different times.
Yeah, different times.
So, Zach,
That snuck out, but
that's all right. That's all right. Zach, how did you get into manga and by extension literature? What was your first sort of introduction to it?
Well, like when I was about 7, I had some friends of mine at school. I don't know how they got into it, but a couple of them just knew about it. So one of my best mates, Max, who's like an artist, he's very good. His stepdad was really into manga, and yeah, so he just came to school one day with like a few. I think they were like Spanish versions of Dragon Ball or something. They go on a holiday or something. And then like shortly after, I remember going around his house again when I was like very young, and they had like a VHS, like so I think a bootleg VHS of like Akira, and like watching that very very young. But this is all like way before, like people didn't really know what Dragon Ball was at all over here at the time. This is like, this would have been about like 1992, wasn't it? Like when I was 7. So like when we were getting like the Dragon Ball thing. So it was, I think before Dragon Ball Z had even started, as far as I know. So yeah, it was one of those things that, I just had friends who were into it and were following it. And as soon as they started, like Viz started doing the versions of Dragon Ball years and years and years later, in like the American comics format. I don't know if do you remember when they were still doing that?
Yes.
American comics size, and I think it was like 2 installments or 3 installments in one issue. So they were like a bit thicker than like a normal American comic because they had quite a few more pages. So I started collecting it like that, like before they were even putting out the book collections and things. So half my Dragon Ball collection is those versions, and then the second half, when they stopped releasing those, I then got all the books. But yeah, I got obsessed with that, and anything anime as well. So loving Akira from like a young age as well. I ended up getting like all the Akira books as soon as they were available from Dark Horse. Also like Ghost in the Shell, Appleseed. But really, it was Dragon Ball was definitely my first introduction.
Yeah, I remember those issues. I think Eclipse had a few of them out as well, didn't they? As well, I do love talking to Americans about Viz because they get really super confused what you're talking about when you're talking about the fat slags that came out through Viz. They're like,
one of the things of like reading kind of manga, shonen stuff, especially, is like a publisher would get the rights to it and start putting out books, and then 2 years down the line, they've not even got a third of the way through the entire storyline, then they lose the license or just not going to do it anymore. So I've got 2 or 3 partial collections of Fist of the North Star where the publisher's just given up the ghost. You're like, oh, okay, thanks. Now I've got. So this more recent one, they started putting out the hardbacks. I've started getting them, and I'm just crossing my fingers if we can get to the end of it.
Yeah, fingers crossed. That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, for these long-running things.
They seem to have put out one a month, so.
Oh right, okay.
Hopefully they'll tank through
Fuck
it.
me, they ain't cheap, Dan.
I know. Don't tell the wife.
Oh no, I've never looked at Dragon Ball Z, and I'm looking at it now. So I've just opened it up on the app. I thought it seems to be seemingly everyone you mentioned of these is on that Shonen Jump app, and it opens with this bloke who looks like he's got sort of Google glasses. He lands he lands on the ground, and he's in like a big, the big hole that he's made as he landed. And I actually think this is Prison Planet by Johnny Ryan. I think this is where I suddenly realised this is where Johnny Ryan got Prison Planet from. Have any of you read Prison Planet?
No.
Fuck me, that's the most twisted shit you'll read in your life. But it just reminded me. I wonder why I must ask him about that. See if that's where he got it from. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'd read this actually. It looks alright. Yeah.
I remember being on a lad's holiday to Ibiza, and then we went down to the town and went into like a newsagent saying, and they had Dragon Ball in there, like in Spanish. Right. And I was like, right, I'm having these. And didn't go down too well with the rest of them.
Well, I think wasn't Helen saying it was big in? It was a huge long before here.
Yeah,
the Spanish had it. Yeah,
the Spanish had it. They were kind of a lot more into kind of that than.
That's incredible. I came back from Spain 3 days ago, and you couldn't kill to find a comic over there now.
Really?
Yeah, they got a load of like Punisher, Welcome Back Frank type things in a couple of the shops on the motorway, but you couldn't find anything over there. Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, they were like Dragon Ball, like those kind of the egg machines where you put in and get it, and they had figures there and stickers and loads of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I don't know what it was about like kind of the Europeans, especially the French. They had the Ulysses 31, which was kind of like a French Asian cinema TV production, as well as that Mysterious Cities of Gold. They did a few series in the 80s, which were kind of like a crossover between the two. And I wonder how those connections came about. Mystifying.
Okay. I think like a lot of the big 80s series were animated in Japan, as far as I know. Like I think Thundercats was, and
okay,
I think I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure.
I know they spent a lot more budget on the intro than they did the contents of the cartoon.
Oh my god, definitely. That's false advertising, isn't it? That Thundercats intro.
Yeah,
you see the intro and you're like, this fucking go, and then like it cuts in and there's barely any motion in any of it.
Yeah.
The worst one, if you ever seen it, is there's a Galaxy Rangers cartoon, and I remember seeing that as a kid, and like the intro to that is like, fucking hell, that is, everything's all over the place. It's really energetic in action, and then the main thing is just terrible. It's like they did it with a knob out, so to speak. It's just absolute rubbish.
Best way to do things.
You get like their faces swimming around their heads.
Yeah. So they had to put a mute on because they were letting fireworks off. I think they've heard it's the 350th.
Yeah.
They were letting fireworks. Nice. Yeah, I think
that
so.
makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I was going to ask you because these are all a lot of these series we're talking about here are series that I keep hearing being mentioned and I've never read. So excuse me while I just mention a couple more, and the experts in the room, Tom and Zach, can explain what they're about. So Bleach, what is that? What's that about? Do you guys know? Or
I've read a bit of it, but it was a while ago. Like Tom, have you read a lot of this?
So actually, I haven't read it. I tried to watch the anime and it didn't really get on with it.
Right.
So
okay.
Feel free, Zach, to step on with this.
Is it a horror thing or something? Is it or?
Do you know what? It's been a while since I started reading it. I picked up like the first like 3-in-1 book, I think.
Right.
Which Viz started doing to like make it a bit cheaper.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was good. I didn't quite click with it. It was just like a lot of guys. I think there was like, isn't that like some demon world or something? I mean, I'm sure there's a Bleach fan listen to this just absolutely screaming at me going, oh my god.
Well, let's move on to another one then. So what is Naruto? I hear about that all the time as well. What's that?
So that is about a little ninja boy who grows up in a village of ninjas. Basically, I think every village in the world has like ninjas in the world that it's set in.
Luton, definitely.
And they're all... I don't know why I'm finding this hard to explain. But yeah, it starts off like this little kid basically going through his ninja training, and there's some threats out in the world from like the other villages and from evil forces. So they're all trying to train up, get strong, and then I don't know. It gets very confused later on for me. Like I'm sure again, there's lots of Naruto.
Okay, so that's like
I've read all of it, but it's. Like the stuff that I really love was the start when he's like a kid training. It's really cool.
Well, then the other one here I've got written down is the one that I think it's got like a scary scarecrow in it, isn't it? And that's Death Note. Is that got the one with the thing that looks a bit like a scarecrow in it? Is that
that's superb. Yeah,
Death Note's fantastic. Death Note's really good. Please go ahead and go on, Tom. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, it's just So absolutely incredible. I'd recommend this book to anybody. It's just one of the best series I've read ever. I think.
So that's sort of a horror thing, is it?
It's you think it's a horror thing. I always thought because the only people that I saw who were into it at first were like quite gothy looking girls at comic conventions. Right. I always assumed it was like a horror thing, but it's more like a thriller. It's like so it's about this high school boy who finds this book called The Death Note, and it's got instructions in it that says basically you can kill anybody indiscriminately by writing their name in this book. And you can sort of list how they die, or if you just write the name, they will die of a heart attack. But it's completely untraceable, so you can kill anybody you want, and you'll get away with it, basically. So he starts testing it. His father is the head of the police force, by the way. He starts testing it out to sort of see, like, okay, like I wonder, what
doesn't he see like criminals on the news, like some mass murder?
Exactly. Yeah. So there'll be like some terrible criminals out there. He'll like put their name in to see what happens, and he'll see them drop dead on the news. He'll be like, oh my god, he's got power. And then it just becomes like almost like a game of cat and mouse between him. He kind of gets in over his head, and then this genius guy called L comes in to try and hunt him down, basically, and using his smarts. So it's almost like a chess game. Between
because he tries to sort of make a
better
world, doesn't he? Like the main character,
yes,
Yagame. He basically like, right, I'm gonna take all the criminal elements out of society and sort of let it be known if you start mucking around, this is what's going to happen to you. And he's essentially the Death Note falls into the hand of like a rabid psychopath, borderline sociopath who's like genius level intellect, isn't he? He's fucking. He's got no problem with killing loads of people, but he thinks he's doing it for the right reason. Like I said, it's really well written because they start setting up these traps to try and find out who's doing it, and they realise that it's not all on the up and up with all these people dying.
So I would say maybe this is controversial. There are almost like two endings to Death Note, and I would only read the first one. I wouldn't go on past. There's a point where you'd naturally stop, and I would naturally stop there because he seemed to carry on for a bit longer, and it wasn't quite as good.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
So, like, halfway through, like it completely things change up.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a natural point where it's like, yeah, this has happened now, and that could naturally end the story, and you go like, stop there.
It's felt like we've got to carry this on. I think one of the good things is
Yeah.
he has like the owner of the original Death Note, the book he's got is like a Shinigami, like the demon. What's the guy's name?
Yes.
Ryuk. Is that it?
Ryuk, yeah, that's it.
And essentially, like he's the light talks to him, like talks through what he's gonna do and what his plans are and what he's doing this. So like rather than having just a character on their own doing all this shit, as a reader, you can see like this interplay between the two of them saying, right, now I'm gonna do this, now I'm gonna do that. And it's a good little tool of keeping the reader in with it. And you've got this demon character who's a great character in himself.
Yeah.
It's a great series.
Very iconic image, isn't it? The old scarecrow thing. It's really interesting. It's a bit like like a demon Joker almost, isn't it?
There's
that going on.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm just looking at it now. That also on the app there. I think they owe us a few quid, actually, don't they? The 4,199s a month that they get.
Didn't they put a film out that on Netflix? I never saw
you're right.
it.
Yeah,
They did. I didn't watch it either.
No.
Yeah.
It's hard one because like it's a massive story and trying to think, right, we're going to cover this in 2 hours, but you're never going to do it justice. You can't.
No.
Okay, good. The other one of the other ones was one that you mentioned, Tom, which is Spy. Is it Spy X Family? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I don't think you pronounce. I think you just go Spy Family.
Spy Family. Okay, which is very good, and that's super popular. I know you mentioned it. God, like 10 episodes ago, I reckon when you came on, and that's like mad popular, isn't it?
I genuinely just really enjoy it. It's a really good comedy. We were away on holiday in Lyme Regis, so I don't know why that bit's important, but we have like
it's very popular. There's a lot of spies in Lyme Regis.
There is a lot. You know, you're there, you're sat there thinking, like, and it's just this really, really well told, very funny, very sweet story, and it's just really well done. And yeah, it covers are beautiful. The art's really lovely, really well done. They do a kid character exceptionally well,
right?
Where they're not annoying. They feel fully rounded and fully formed. And just exceptionally well told.
Good stuff, man. Yeah, good. I mean, there's a wealth of stuff on this. One Punch Man's on Shonen Jump. Now that's got an interesting history. You were telling me about this, Tom, weren't you? You were showing me. Do you remember?
Yes.
So One Punch Man is like very popular because it's also on Netflix. I've watched it. I quite enjoyed it, actually. I'm not a big animation fan, but I really enjoyed it. And it's like super frenetic violence, you know, just crazy. It's like a Hulk comic in a way, isn't it? It's just huge monsters fighting each other. But you told me that it's got an interesting origin. Yeah.
So the creator picked up a piece of software called Manga Studio, which is now I think called Clip Studio.
Yeah.
And he wanted to try it out. So he created One Punch Man using that bit of software and released it as a webcomic. And the art is it's serviceable. It's very basic. It's pretty serviceable, and
it looks a bit to me like a sort of American indie comic in a way.
Yeah,
you know, it's got that sort
that's
of
a
thing
good shout, actually.
Yeah,
good shout. So he produced that, became exceptionally popular, and then got picked up by the publisher, which I believe is published by Shinichi, and they redrew it all for the manga, and they redrew it in a style which essentially is the anime, frankly. In terms of like the anime lifted from that style, and that's what became the anime. So there's 3 versions of it at the moment. There's the webcomic, which is more up to date than anything else. The manga, which is obviously a little bit behind, and then obviously the anime, which is behind that again.
Yeah. So when you say that story by One, that is his name, isn't it? That's like his pseudonym. O-N-E.
That's the name he goes by.
Yeah. And I'm looking at here. The art for the current manga is Yusuke Murata, and I kind of dig it, man. I've read about 20 of them, 20 volumes. You know, like 20 chapters rather. I think it's good. I enjoy it. Yeah,
his artwork is like extraordinary. I think he like as it goes along, especially like, it is unbelievable. I've picked up, like, read through volumes of it and just like gasped with how good his drawings are at points.
Great creature design, which I know is up your street as well, isn't it, Zach? You love drawing a monster, don't you? Yeah. I can see where I was looking at some of the sort of lizard-headed monster thing that you draw, and the one that you said, I think you drew one in one of the videos. I started off making this look a bit like the shape of a horse, and then added a frog in there as well. And I can see that's the sort of thing he does, isn't it? These creatures appear that are so odd, aren't they? And he fights.
Oh yeah. His like the creativity levels, I think, and I don't know because I've not read the original webcomic, but
right.
I'm up to date on the books. But yeah, like some of the creatures they come up with are absolutely insane, and I don't know how much of it is from one and how much of it is from Murata. But oh yeah, like the creativity and like the creatures and also the superheroes and their powers and abilities. It's just like there's so much creativity in it, so much humor. Like the action and the drawing is like unbelievable. Yeah, I really like the anime. So I'd say if you've read the anime, that's awesome. Watch the anime, that's awesome. But I think like the book, like the manga is even better.
Yeah, I started with the anime and went back to the manga. Yeah. Now looking at this has me asking questions about different cultures, I suppose, and different sort of things that we might include and might not include. Now I'm looking at a page of One Punch Man. It's like chapter 130 here, and the lady in it is naked, pretty much. The female monster in it is naked, and you can just make out the shadow of nipples. Is that? I mean, do they have different sort of? I don't want to say censorship, but do they look at things, the female shape and the male shape, differently over there? Is there something different going on? But on these comics are designed for 12 to 18-year-olds. Is what we've been told. Yeah, what are the sensibilities like? Do you know, guys?
I mean, I certainly no expert on it, but it definitely seems that's the case. Because
right.
I mean, I remember even reading like on the original version of Dragon Ball. So there's Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z.
Okay.
The original version of Dragon Ball is when the main character's like a little kid. It feels very much like a kid's comic. It's very sweet and playful. And then there'll be moments where like one of the characters is being like a total old perv and asking to see someone's pants, and
right.
and you see a character's boobs or something like that. And I think like this is clearly like a comic designed for like an 8-year-old. Like,
yeah.
It's So definitely different expectations of what's like. Yeah.
Which I suppose is what I kind of honestly is what kept me away from manga for a long time. Is I thought it was all a bit Sailor Moon pervy. Does that make sense? I mean, it's not, and I was completely ill-informed and made a stupid decision. But I don't know, just something about it just seems strange to me.
No, it makes absolute perfect sense. And there are some titles I don't read because there's too much of that going on.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right in some sense that it does happen. However, there's some things where, for example, when Disney films are released over in Japan, they have to add on the fifth finger to people's hands. Because they naturally animate it 4 because it's easier, but they add on the fifth finger because the fifth finger was taken off by.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Was it Yakuza? I believe.
You chop a finger off and give it to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they add the so there is different sensibilities in that sense, and things where, either it doesn't gel or mesh with your current thinking.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to say that Disney have to add in like boob shots because they won't accept the films without them.
Well, their history. What was that weird one? Is it The Secret of Nim? If you look in the background, there's a naked lady, isn't there, in one of them? Is that right? I can't remember.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, maybe I'm imagining that. Don't sue us.
Animators just got so much time on their hands. I'll just stick a frame of this in, no one will know.
Until the HD version comes out. Yeah.
Yeah, and then people pouring over it and think, hold on.
I suppose that is also the question which I'm coming from there, is the sort of this sometimes illusion, sometimes fact that there's a stunted maturity in some of this stuff. Is that something you see at all, Tom? What do you think about that? I know.
I think that's very fair. And whenever I recommend stuff on here from Shonen Jump, I'm very careful of prefacing the audience I think it's good for.
Right. Yeah.
And there are different, like what I'm going to recommend today, I'd happily recommend to anyone on this call, but there are other things I'd recommend where there's different levels of maturity that these things have that, doesn't always work for everyone. And that's perfectly okay,
Yeah.
And that's perfectly okay. But I think there's Perch who said it really well. That like, if you make comics for everyone, you make comics for no one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one thing that's fantastic about manga, and especially with like Shonen, is like they have different genres, different almost age brackets for different manga. Yeah. And they pitch that market, and I think that's really a powerful tool they have in their tool belt. Frankly.
It's a weird one, isn't it? I think we've kind of grown into this thing where people who are into children's things became more acceptable at some point, and I can only repeat it from a sort of professional point of view where I've seen it in Hilda, and especially since the cartoons have come out, almost like we've got this sort of wave of adults who are into it who I don't know. Sometimes it feels right, and sometimes it doesn't. Man, do you know what I mean?
You're getting in a deep topic there, definitely.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. It's kind of like an infantilization.
Yes.
Of people just like, it's easier to talk about this cartoon stuff than stuff that's going on in the real world. I'm not saying you have to talk real all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of I think I had that view of a lot of shonen manga, I suppose, and a lot of my impression is wrong. Having now dived into it due to Tom, really, is that I think I'm wrong about a lot of it. What's your thoughts on Zach? Because coming from someone who has worked on the Phoenix and the DFC and all that sort of thing, is there a strange sort of blurring of lines now? Is comics for kids now comics for everyone? Do you think, or?
Yeah, I mean, comics are for everybody. As you're saying, I love sort of shonen stuff, but I absolutely would not recommend like almost any of them to like readers of the Phoenix.
Very few that's interesting. Yeah,
because like so many are seen as kid friendly over there, like in Japan, but like because of like the cultural differences and things. Like absolutely couldn't recommend any of these things.
I suppose we've got the attitude over here that comics are for kids amongst people who adults, older generation who don't read them. If you say you read comics, there was a period of time where they thought you might be a bit soft in the head, because then nobody really understood it, didn't they? And I think the Phoenix is to them even parents going in and buy it for their kids. That's good comics. It's good for kids. But if you said to them, I'm reading this thing, look, there's this lady who's dressed as a schoolgirl who's fighting demons with a sword, they would go, what are you talking about? Who's that for? There's almost a bit of that, isn't there?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a difficult. You're right, Dan. It's a difficult topic, but
it did get demonized manga and anime. I'd say only it's come to a bit of a resurgence.
Yeah.
Recently, I think before then it kind of had a bit of didn't have the greatest rep, did it? Like, especially amongst us Western comic readers, there was always a bit of a sneer about it. Sort of, oh God, why are you into that? Or you'd instantly get labelled as a furry, or you know what I mean?
It was a bit, wasn't there?
Yeah, it's kind of.
You're right, though. I think we've become more educated in I'm going to say like the last 3 years, even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems to. Maybe it's just kind of more of a personal thing, but I definitely feel like we were able to see more facets of it, and they were always there, but we just didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't see them.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm not one of these people who likes writing or saying stuff in broad strokes about things. Not everything's not one thing and everything's not another thing. But I think there is the occasional case of people who, avoid, same with all comics, avoid a bit of real life, don't they, by putting their head into a comic sometimes and living that fantasy life, I suppose.
Yeah, that's fine. What I mean? It's just that sometimes you have to come out of that comic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do find it weird because, so many manga have like very appealing styles, like characters with big eyes, really cool designs.
Yeah.
But the sort of thing that feels over here would be 100% designed for kids. But then the content of those comics is often as far away from kid friendly as it could get. So I think it becomes quite a minefield. If you're like a parent who wants to buy your kid a comic, you could look at the cover of a lot of manga and think, oh yeah, they'd love that.
Yeah.
And then you don't realise there's just like something absolutely horrendous like goes on page 12 or whatever.
Some of the times you could look at like 99 pages out of 100 and it's all fun and dandy. And then on one of the pages you're like, whoa, like if that was released over here, an editor would have been all over that saying, look, you're taking out to an 18 rating.
And I think that's what a lot of these hentai people take advantage of, don't they? That sort of almost standard maturity. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not a prude at all, guys. But that's the only time I've ever made a complaint at a convention was to people selling hentai openly at a kids' convention.
Get off
and got them moved away. It was like fucking awful. And you're right, though, Zach, when you say that they do appeal to that. Big-eyed. Almost like casually looking at it, you think, oh, there's a kid. Oh my god, there's tentacles coming out there. It's almost like that, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. I think that dates back like a long time though in terms of manga, because like with like Tetsuka, who did Astro Boy, which is obviously very very kid friendly, and his style is massively influenced by Disney, which is obviously about as kid friendly as you can get for the most part. But then you look at some of his other stuff, like I know Tony, you said like last week you've read Blackjack. There's definitely stuff in Blackjack which is like not very kid friendly,
transgressive, political. You know, they play with gender. Yeah, some really interesting stuff. Yeah, just not kid friendly at all. Yeah, quite frightening.
Yeah, whereas the style kind of is, you know, like he shifts his style subtly between his series, so it doesn't look like Astro Boy, but it's from the same hand of the man who made Astro Boy. So I think it's like
it's not heavily shadowed or anything like that. Yeah, it's just good line work, isn't it? Yeah, I know what you mean. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Like I've got one of his other books in front of me, Dororo, which is incredibly dark.
Okay.
Like the synopsis on the back: a samurai lord has bartered away his newborn's organs to 48 demons in exchange for dominance on the battlefield. Yet the abandoned infant survives thanks to a medicine man who equips him with prosthetics. If I can talk, lethal ones, which with the wronged son will hunt down the multitude of demons to reclaim his body one piece at a time. So basically he's trying to hunt down demons to get back the body parts that his father gave away to rebuild himself. It's so dark, but it looks like ultra cartoony, like the way it's drawn.
Yeah, there's one in that Blackjack where this man, he has to do like he's always doing full transplants and full brain transplants, and this bloke turns up and he's got this like evil face on him that's like weeping sores and everything. And so he does a face transplant on him, and then his face turns evil again, and like, you know, it's just horrible. And he says, "Oh, the moral," because each little story's got a moral, isn't it? And the moral of this story is, you know, your face is going to show your true self every time. You know, it's like really adult stuff like that. You know, incredible stuff. And he's always digging people's chests open and pulling their hearts out and stuff. You know, all this sort of thing. Yeah, I think the one you're going to talk about, Dan, almost has a juvenile style, doesn't it? The classroom one you're going to talk about, that's the style in that is almost very straightforward, isn't it?
Yes, God, yeah, that's kind of it's a very odd one because like the content matter and the art style at times seem
a little bit odd, don't they? Yeah,
odd, yeah. And I think it's just the time period of when it was put out.
Yeah,
but it also plays into it because you got this almost kind of like the drawings are drawn for a younger reader, but some of the content is like fucking hell, this is quite hardcore. Like, if you presented this to what you imagine the target audience would be, it's like this is pretty brutal. It's an interesting read though. I'm really enjoying
it. I've got it. I bought it and I haven't read it yet, so I'm looking forward to hearing you talk about it, man. Yeah, good. I don't know what you think, Dan, but I think we're kind of nearing the end of this. Should we just ask some recommendations from our guests of Shonen Manga that they, you know, just a quick one line. If you're getting into Shonen, what would you read? Should we start with you, Zach? What would be your top one to grab hold of?
I mean, just because I'm such a big fan of it, I'd say Dragonball.
Cool.
Like, I love the original version, especially when Goku's like a little child. It's just really fun, really silly, great action, great characters. And I think the version that's on the Shonen Jump app, they've edited the perviness out of it.
Right, okay.
It's a bit more kid-friendly, I think, now than the versions which they were putting out years ago.
Good stuff, man. What about you, Tom?
I would go for Kaijun and Breaks.
Oh,
purely
good.
Because it's easy to find. And it isn't my favourite? No. But it's incredibly easy to get into. You'll get the concept very quickly. And it has that phonetic energy that I really enjoy from this sort of style. And if you enjoy this, then you can like lead into other things very easily.
Good stuff. Good. Well, there you go. Shonen Manga. We're gonna try and tackle two different kinds of manga going forward on this episode. So keep your ears open. There's still a bit more to come. What do you want to do now, Dan? Should we do the shout out? Should we? Fancy?
That's a good shout.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Babes? Or
I do. I've got extensive amounts of shout outs actually.
Go on, let's do
I want to give a shout out first to That Comic Smell issue 2.
Yeah. I've got mine through now.
From the lads. Issue 2, the comic anthology born from a podcast, is back. In this issue, David Robertson, Mike Sadaka, Fernando Pons, and Tom Stewart have more collaborations, single creator stories, and guests taking part. That's 44 pages, black and white and colour.
Oh, Edison.
If you go shooting over to thatcomicsmell.bigcartel.com, you can find it all there. The second shout I've got is for the next anthology title from Spider Forest, which is under their Threads, Creatures. Short anthology of comics, all about beasts of all stripes, from forgotten strays to fantastic dragons. That's got 25 days to go when you listen to this, and it's sailing quite nicely towards its total. I've got one of the anthologies here, and I can't see it on the shelf, but that's great because they ask in the forums, they ask if anyone wants to get involved. This is the theme of this anthology, and contributors put their stories in, and away they go. So that's great. And there's a certain amount of curation, because you don't get your comic onto Spider Forest unless it's been through a committee of fellow creators who give it the green light or not. So that's a good one. I popped up on the Brew-Gooders this week on Thursday.
Yes, I watched that. On the last day of my holiday, I watched that. Yeah, very good, man.
So I'm on there for the show. I'll have to drop that link into the show notes because it's a Facebook link. First time I've ever done that. It was fun. Really,
it's like a video one as well. I found it. I think I messaged you saying I was finding it quite arousing watching you. Yeah,
genuinely arousing. It's kind of because obviously, like Twitch or something, people can comment as you're going along, and there's a bit of audience participation, which I quite like.
Yeah.
And finally, for the Kickstarter, we've got a Metallic Dynamite 100+ page sci-fi comic book anthology. 6 new stories: Monsters, Heartbreak, The End of the Universe, featuring art by Lucy Sullivan, Benjamin Philby, Shaky Kane, and more. And that's
I've backed this.
I bet this too. It's blasting towards its total. Put out by John Thomas. Looks fantastic. Science fiction anthology. This is going to be a good one. So go check that one
Friend
out.
of the show, very active on the Slack, now. Jordan. Yeah, it's good to see.
I'll just quickly
Yeah.
tag in Tom before we go over to yours.
Okay, babes. Yeah.
Yep. I've got 2 very quick ones. The Drink and Draw is this Friday.
Yes.
So we're releasing all the details after this episode goes live, and once all the social stuff for this is done, I'll put out all the details for the Drink and Draw. Please just drop me a line and I can send you all the details for Friday. We're starting at 7:30, same time, same place, online, Zoom.
Yeah.
And my second recommendation...
Just quickly on that one, Tom, is we're going to be celebrating the 350th on that. I know Alan Purdy said, we can have a celebrate that. So I think we'll have a drink.
That's a great idea.
350 episodes.
That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, nice one.
And the second recommendation is actually for a bit of software.
Oh, okay.
I've been messing around with Blender for the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, so good, man. Yeah, I've been liking
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
It's really flipping good, and it's free. So, if you've got a couple of weeks and you want to learn a new skill, I'd strongly recommend it's download it. It's free, and you can get really far in a couple of weeks. And it's just really good. So yes, I'd recommend software Blender.
Good stuff, man. I've got a couple. Well done to Sarah. I don't know if you saw this, Sarah Harris. She drew a Misty cover on a wall. Did you see this?
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's actually better than the cover of the comic. Incredible. Yeah.
I would love Sarah to come around and paint one of my walls with something. Fantastic. I love her stuff.
She's going to kill me now. Is there a website called You Pay I Spray?
That's the one?
Yeah. Good. Have a look for that. It's on Instagram as well. I follow it. It's part of that cool street art thing that I don't understand, but I follow her stuff anyway because it's very good. Nottingham Comic Con, as we mentioned last night, have announced their date. It's the 29th of October. I think you've done one that before, Zach, haven't you? You've done Nottingham, haven't you? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I think it's 2018, I think. Yeah. It was great. Fantastic show, yeah.
Really lovely one day. Yeah, one day. Everyone gets drunk afterwards kind of one. One of our faves. Well, they've tweeted out asking who you'd like to see there. So you can send your suggestions of guests you'd like to see there. Don't make it too extravagant, So go to Nottingham Comic on Twitter and you can send them suggestions. I've just had a look through their tweets and you'll see if they're mentioning it. We have one more competition. So to celebrate the 350th episode, I was on holiday last week with Mr. Pat Mills and he has donated. I think you've got a copy of this, Dan, haven't you? It's the DC hardback collection of martial law.
Yes, it's awesome.
I had to throw a number of items of clothes away to get this book back through the weight of it back through the airport. But it's absolutely lovely collection of nearly all. It doesn't have the crossovers, it doesn't have the mask, and doesn't have Pinhead in it and the Savage Dragon stuff, but everything else is in there. Gorgeous. So to get a copy of that, you just have to answer the following question. Everyone write in, the same as earlier. So Dan's probably, I'm going to say, got the email ready to give out, but just get hold of us wherever you can get hold of us. So if you're on the Slack, if you're on the Facebook group, if you're on Twitter, just get hold of us and send us the answer to this question. In the stories of Hellbreaker, there are actually 2 stories so far. There's a text story and a comic story that Ian Ashcroft and Pat Mills and George MacDonald do in Space Warp. There is a character called DS Rod Asquith. Is one of the characters in it. Now, the question is, can you tell me or tell us what his weapon of choice is? Ian has drawn this as well. So what is Asquith's weapon of choice? So let us know whatever way you can. We'll collect all the answers.
Emails awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Got Twitter @theawesomepod, or on Facebook, facebook.com/awesomecomicspodcast, and you can get hold of us there or on the Slack.
Yep. Come and join the Slack anyway, because it is a laugh. But come and join us there, and you can get all the answers out on there. And we'll be taking the same for the question at the start of the show for the Comic House subscription. We'll also be putting all the right answers to this in a hat. Well, it won't be a hat, will it? It'll just be something
good. Probably a website that
sock
put entries in, and
I'll use my special sock. We'll put all the answers in my special sock, and we can draw the winner out of Tony's sock. There you go. So you can answer that question. Good. What about you two guys? Tommy, you got any shout outs otherwise? Other ones, man?
I've done mine. I'm all good.
You've done yours too. Yeah. What about you, Zach? Any shout outs you want to give? Anyone you don't like or anything?
One thing I'd recommend is the new Mega Robo Bros book, and the preceding two as well, by my mate Neil Cameron, which is a series that runs in the Phoenix. It's brilliant. It's really, really good. I've given it as gifts to like a bunch of kids, and they've all just absolutely got hooked on it. It's excellent. It also like very manga inspired in a lot of ways. Yeah, thoroughly recommend it. It's
so
great.
Is that one of those books that's like a regular in the Phoenix, and then they collected it as well, did they? Or
yes, that's right. Yeah,
right, cool.
Yeah.
I like it when they do that. Yeah, there's some good stuff there. Yeah, we love. I'd look through a couple of Phoenix. I think you can get issue 500 if you go to the Phoenix site. You can read issue 500 for free on there. So just go and have a read of that. Good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you're not in it, Zach, so it's not as that good an issue.
It could be better.
Exactly. Yeah. Good stuff. Okay, so is that going to be your recommend? Is it, Zach, that one?
I'll make that my recommend. Although I will say, as Tom was mentioning, like Blender as a bit of software, right now for anybody who doesn't have Clip Studio Paint, I think that's on like one of its discounts at the moment, 40% off. So really, really worth getting that if you don't have it. It's like an amazing tool for drawing comic books.
Good to know. Good stuff. Yeah, get on that as well. Excellent. So the recommends are part of the part of the program in this one. So we've got two. We're going to start with horror, and that's going to be recommends that come from Tom and Dan. So did you want to lead us off, Dan? Did you? Because you've got a little bit of talk about horror.
About horror manga. So like standard manga, horror titles started to appear in the lending libraries. You remember that Helen mentioned last week where people couldn't afford manga books on their own.
Yeah,
they would go and rent these out. So these started popping up, horror titles in the 50s and early 60s, and they expanded into the mainstream from there. Like
so people would make their own comics and drop them off at these places.
Yeah, I think. At the lending libraries, and then people come in. The honor system of that, of like, you're going to rent this comic out and take it back, that is just mind blowing to me, because
it's great, isn't it?
Can you imagine that now in this country? You take your comic down there and leave it, and you think someone's going to pay to rent it out and take it back. I just can't see that happening. But yeah, great days. Yeah. So, most of them are published in shonen magazines with often scary yet sympathetic protagonists leading through tales about ghosts and demons. And it was a subculture that kind of evolved from there. And the alternative magazine like Garrow, they published like horror stories, and you had like anthologies that sort of came from them. And it kind of, you can get the whole sort of range from mild creepiness to like extreme gore. So there's a lot to it. Like all the genres, you can kind of the whole range of them. The top 5 titles that are pulled off of Ranker, the top 2 are by Junji Ito, which is Uzumaki and Tommy. The second one, which I'm about halfway through reading, which is The Drifting Classroom, which is an older title.
Early 70s, isn't it, Dan, I think?
Yeah.
Like yeah.
It's Hiroyi Koyushitsu is the author. I'll talk about that. I'll just circle back to that. We've got Museum of Terror by Junji Ito and Suicide Circle, Jihatsu Sakura. Obviously, Junji, the Uzumaki. I think I heard you wasn't too mad on that, T.
I read Censor. I was chatting to Eamon about it on the Never On Anything, and we both read Censor. We both read it, and I genuinely think, man, because it's one of those expectations things, it got built up more than I think. You know, almost like people it's programmatical, isn't it? With some people, if you mention horror, they got to somehow mention him. and I was expecting a little bit more. I don't know if I read the wrong one. Censor wasn't quite, but I'm going to give him another go because you can't walk into.
I really enjoyed Uzumaki.
Right.
Spiral.
Okay.
Is that right, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I really enjoyed that one. That was because you kind of like got the whole creepiness of stuff going on, and it was kind of like a peek into life of like a town living on by the sea in Japan.
I did buy a horror book last week based on one of your recommendations, Dan, which is called "I Am a Hero" by Kendo Hanazawa.
That's a strange one. Yeah.
I haven't read it yet, but it looks beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. See what you think of it.
Yeah.
Because there's a bit at the beginning of it where the main character works as an assistant to someone creating a manga, and you get a look into that life, which is just as fascinating to me.
Yeah. I get you. Okay.
The drifting classroom is a story you might have thought about in your head at some point. Like, what happens if the place I'm in suddenly was like somewhere else, and we all had to get on with stuff? In this one, an entire school vanishes off the face of the earth and appears in what appears to be a post-apocalyptic future. There's nothing around. There's this barren desert, blackened sands, skies are rolling black clouds, and there's some kind of apocalypse happened. And it deals with how the school kids and teachers, how they deal with what's happened. And it starts off like we were saying, the artwork, it seems to be aimed at a certain age group. Maybe that's because of the time period it came out.
Yeah.
But the content is like, bloody hell, all these kids have like been cut off from their families and parents that don't know what they are, so they're all getting upset and screaming, and the teachers try and keep them calm. There's the guy who delivers the food. They suddenly realize that, hold on, the food and waters are going to be a valuable commodity. Let's go down and get some. And this one delivery man who feels slighted by them is taken hostage with a kid, stabbed one, and hoarding all the bread and food. Look, kids are getting hacked down all the time because there's a whole school of kids, and he focused on the one main lad and the couple of people around him. But it's like, bloody hell, if I've sort of read this when I was like playing my way through the Beano or the Dandy at that age, you'd be like, whoa, what is this? This is really kind of like out there. It's an interesting one. I've not got through it all. I think there's about 3, 4, 5 volumes of it. So I'd like to see kind of where it goes. I've got another book I'm going to talk about, but I think you've got a horror title you're going to talk about, Tom. So should we intersperse it with that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfectly makes sense. So I'm going to recommend Tokyo Ghoul by Sui Ishida. Now, I'll preface this by saying I read this morning. I've only read volume 1, so the first 9 issues. And in short, Tokyo Ghoul follows the story of Ken Kenakai. He was on a very pleasant date with a lovely young lady. He was walking her home like the good gentleman he is, but then she tries to eat him, but not in the sexy way, in the more
you can tell he's been on the show before. He has to put that in because he knows what we're thinking. Yeah,
in the more cannibalistic way.
Right.
A terrible workplace accident happens, and she is killed in the process of trying to eat him. And he suffers a severe injury, which means he needs part of her organs put inside of him. And he becomes a sort of like half human, half ghoul creature.
Some kind of metaphor here.
Exactly. One big preface of all of this is there are ghouls in the world. Ghouls in this world act a bit like vampires in terms of they eat people, they can only eat human flesh, and they hunt them down. They are the charming killer, like they're hunting them down to get human flesh. And that's kind of where it is in the moment, and it seems like a good fun ride. Frankly, art's good, storytelling seems solid, and the first 9 issues whiz by, frankly. So I'm looking forward to reading more of it.
It comes up often as a really popular. If you put in popular horror manga, it comes up all the time. That one, yeah, it's very popular, isn't it? Yeah, and it's well thought of, I think.
Yeah. There you go.
Good, nice one, man. Good. Did you want to recommend another one, Dan? Or
that's like it. That's got an animated series, hasn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, my next one is one I picked up during the week, and I didn't realise that it had a Netflix series already out about it. So this has been...
Are you there, Dan?
Hello?
Dan's disappeared.
Dan has disappeared.
Okay.
Tony, do you want to go for yours?
Yes, I will. Oh, what's happened with Dan there? He was all right, wasn't he? He did change his headphones. I don't know if it's... so let's put the time in. Okay. I don't know how that works. Right. Okay, so for mine, so we got sort of given tasks this week, really. So Dan said he'll do horror, and he gave me fantasy to look up because I'd already looked at quite a lot of it. But if you put fantasy manga into a search engine, it comes up with everything. Everything we've talked about so far comes up. When you think about it, Dragonball Z, you know, everything has got a fantasy element to it, hasn't it? You know, Demon Slayer and all sorts of things. So I thought, right, okay, I'd been reading a little bit about yokai. I don't know if you guys have heard of yokai before. I'm guessing you have.
Yes, just a bit this morning, actually, yeah.
Okay, cool. So yokai translates literally as strange apparitions, which I'm wondering is why Alex called his shop that. I don't know. I bought some comics off him about an hour ago, so there you go. For purposes of manga, it is in fact it's pretty much a genre, you know, and it's a class of supernatural entities and spirits, and it's kind of an interesting theory because it does come from folklore. I'll go into the depth of the folklore about it in a second, but it's also like an evolving fiction where creatures are being created as part of fiction as well. It's quite interesting. So yokai are also referred to as Ayakashi Mononoke, which I think isn't that a film? Isn't there a Princess Mononoke or something?
Yes, there is.
Yeah. Dan's just come back, so he'll do his book in a second. And Mamona. Now, they're not typically what we might see in horror stories as monsters and demons per se, but they do often involve a bit of that. They're more sort of, I'm going to say, like folklore-y, sort of naturally evolving kind of. They're kind of the creatures you might see at dusk running past a tree in the woods or something, or just catch them out of the sort of peripheral corner of your eye. And some of them have shape-shifting abilities, etc. They have all different names, and they are talked about, I suppose, in the same way that in the Western world we would talk about, the Green Man or a Yeti, for example, or a Bigfoot or something like that. Their depictions in stories and art go back absolute centuries, so they you get them described and drawn in art and stories in Japanese Edo period. There's even a book of them called A Complete Dictionary of Japanese Folklore, which is a bit like a bird-watching guide for these creatures,
Okay.
Some areas are almost tourist attractions in regards to the yokai that come from there. I suppose a little bit, I was thinking about this earlier, I suppose a little bit like something like the Loch Ness Monster. Like people go to Loch Ness, don't they, almost to see the Loch Ness Monster, or the Wendigo in Canada or something like that. But it's a really interesting genre, and it continues to be evolved and explored and researched as well. If you look at it this way, we wouldn't have Pokemon without this tradition. We wouldn't have some of the Studio Ghibli stuff without it. There is a picture scroll called Uishi Hiroki Monogatari picture scroll, and it's almost a bit like Pokemon, so if you can catch them all. It's almost a bit like that, So I thought, right, well, where does this leave us? This is interesting as a theory. Where does this leave us as part of Manga Month? And I thought, let's go back to talk about what Helen talked about last week, about in the history of manga. We talked about Shigeru Mizuki, who there was the character who Helen described as losing his arm in World War II. I did a podcast on Onward Towards Our Noble Deaths, he is absolutely incredible. Which is I actually claim is mouse good, but also he was known as the master of the yokai genre, and he absolutely was obsessed with it. He lived between 1922 and 2015, and he died at a lot of these mangakars seem to live forever, don't they? He died at the age of 93, and he created a non-stop. He was obsessed by the stories of ghosts and supernatural beings, and there was a local woman when he was a child called Fusa Kageyama, who he called Nonaba, and she told him spooky stories when he was very young, and he became obsessed with these stories. In fact, he did a comic about her, about the stories, her and the stories she told him. But he turned it into, he didn't just treat it like a comic, he turned it into fucking industry almost. There's museums about it, there's anime, live action, I think non-stop anime. It's one, it kind of like keeps rebooting itself and coming up. So I picked out a book by him called Tono Monogatari, which is by him, 254 pages, published by Drawn and Quarterly, and they're bringing out a lot of his stuff. In fact, they've just announced, I know Eamon asked me to give this a shout out, I think it's good. they've just announced a repackaging of all of his stuff, a redesign of Onward as well as his Showa, A History of Japan. So they've really grasped the fact that this is a creator in Japan who is absolutely Tezuka huge over there, Tezuka huge, but he's just, we don't really see his stuff, but slowly D&Q are releasing it, and all credit to them. It's available on Comixology and Amazon, whatever we're calling it now, and you can get it as a hard copy. I got mine in Gosh. Now, there's a really interesting text piece at the start of this, which describes how these stories came about, because these are like they're like Grimm's fairy tales. They've almost taken the local stories from travel. He's travelled around these people have travelled around the country and taken these stories. Now, the stories that these come from, that these created from, came from the time that Japan faced quite an industrialization. It was post the Americans arriving. They were trying to catch up in weapons and industry and stuff like that. And there was a guy called Ino Enryo who sought to banish the stories of these things to the past, because he sort of said these are childish, these are made up stories. We need to banish them. But a guy called Kunio Yanagita believed that they were part of the Japanese psyche, and he sought to record and preserve them. And he travelled around the area called Tono, which is where a lot of these stories come from, with a young writer called Kizen Sakai, and they recorded them all. In 1910, the original book, Tono Monogatari, was published. There's just 350 copies that were published, but eventually it grew. And after a while, and now it's recognised as being this sort of real classic book. So Mizuki, he was obsessed with it, absolutely obsessed with it, and he's serialised it. And what you've got is he hasn't done all the stories from the original book, but he's tried to do all of his favourites. And it appeared in a manga magazine called Big Comic from 2008 to 2009, and it collects he did 119 stories. He does, well, I suppose these sort of old manga cards, he inserts himself into the story, so it has him. It's hard to describe him as like a Tharg-like narrator, but he sort of just pops up here and there and makes silly comments about stuff. He says like, well, that doesn't sound very good. He sort of turns up in these sort of medieval scenes and says stuff, and then sort of wanders off. As is a lot of these manga, it starts off in colour. Is this Zach and Tom? You know this better than me. It's almost like every so often you get 4 colour pages in this. Is that something that would be in the original magazines?
Yeah. So I think most series, when they've got their debut, I believe anyway,
right.
They'll start them off with colour pages. And if it's a popular series, it will be like, you're doing well, we'll give you some colour pages at the start.
So it's a bit like the interior page, the double spread in 2000 AD where, Dredd would get it because he's quite popular every so often and that sort of thing, maybe. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's almost like, well done, you're doing well. Have a few colour pages. But unfortunately, when they get published over here in like in the little small books, they don't get reproduced in colour, so they kind of... They're almost like worse pages often because they're all kind of like a bit greyed and muddy.
Sort of grayscale, I know what you mean. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
I've seen that. That makes so much sense now.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I was just looking at a page like that from Dragonball and thinking, that looks a bit dirty, that page. What's happening there?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's quite a shame, but
yeah, isn't it? Interesting. I think D&Q have obviously sort of treated this with a bit of reverence then, hopefully. Then that's why they've done that, because the colours really reproduced lovely. It really looks nice.
That's brilliant, yeah.
I mean, it's a weird one, actually. So when you think this is like grim fairy tales in a way for, the Tono area of Japan and a certain period, it actually has a little nasty edge to it. I'm not actually going to say it's necessarily there for kids, because I think page 10 you get like this numerous stories, 119 I think it is, and one of them is like some massive woman, like a giant woman who's got her breasts out, and that's kind of the first story in a grass skirt. So I just sort of picked out a couple just before I finished that I thought were interesting ones. There's one called Ikigami, which is a divine spirit that causes disaster after it crosses your path, and that's a really good one. So there's this, Japanese stories, you even get this in Usagi, don't they? There's always someone walking across the country in there, travelling. They're always walking across the path somewhere, and this sort of attractive woman walks across his path, and it causes this bloke's life to turn to shit. There's a yokai called an Unone, which gets a kick out of frightening travellers, and in that one you don't even see it; it just sort of screams and makes these travellers, jump and run off. There's one of my favourite ones is called Makura Gaishi, and it's a demon who creeps into your room at night and flips over your pillow while you're sleeping. That's pretty cool. It's a creepy one, I think. So when you read all this stuff, suddenly things like The Ring and, you know, The Grudge, and you kind of think, oh, I see where they're getting this from. You know, it's almost like, you know, the same way we do with horror. Sometimes it comes from that sort of folk tradition of, I suppose that's where vampires come from in a way, isn't it? You know, there's one called Zashiki Warashi, which is a house spirit in the form of children. And they often indicate at the start that the household will prosper, but afterwards, if they leave the house, it means there's going to be disaster. That's quite an interesting one, and it's just littered with all these different stories. It's just absolutely brilliant. It's not like I mean, it's quite a long book. I mean, it's almost 260 pages, but it's little bites. You know, some of the stories are only 2 or 3 pages, and then you get another one that's like 8 pages. And it's always got Mizuki who's just wandering around, looking a bit confused or commenting on things, then wandering into the next scene. And sometimes it doesn't have a chapter break, so you don't know. You have to just sort of pay attention really to the story. To, oh, by the way, and there's this other thing that happens in the woods or around the corner. You know, it's a bit like that, but it's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I wrote down a couple of things that he says. He says this won't end well. I kind of like that sort of thing. I say, and that doesn't look very healthy. Is another thing he says. You can find a copy. I found a copy in Gosh. They are also noticed there was copies in foils if you're in central London. But yeah, it's really worth getting, and I can't say enough of how great the creator is on this. Honestly, he's definitely in my top 5 creators of all time. It's just brilliant. Yeah, you know, really good. A guy who lost a fucking arm, as Helen was saying last week, lost an arm in the war, his drawing arm, and then had to teach himself to draw when he came home with his other arm. Yeah, amazing. These people. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. So get into the old yokai. You'll see there's tendrils from it to probably loads of shonen manga. You know, Demon Slayer, you know, all this sort of thing. You'll see that there's loads of tendrils that come from this area of comics, an area of folklore back into the world of shonen manga that we've been talking about. But yeah, that's a good one. Yokai. Have a look for that. Yokai, as it is in translation. That's my one. Dan, did you want to do your one? Because you broke up there, mate, didn't you?
Yeah, my internet decided to die halfway through. So it's Hellbound.
Okay.
It's actually a Korean comic, and it's art by Choi Go-Yusuk and written by Yeon Sang-ho. You might have seen some of Yeon Sang-ho's work before. He wrote Train to Busan.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, it's a great little horror film, that one. This was originally published on Webtoons. And the artwork is something about, I think it's pretty much 90% photographic backgrounds, but it's not like they've just run it through a filter on Photoshop and Bob's your uncle. You can tell it's a Photoshop filter, but obviously they've got these locations and they've shot heavily around the environment to work in the characters. Okay. So it's not just like, they've Googled a picture of an office and tried to work it in there. The environment is the same environment every time they go. Like when one of the main characters goes to the police station, it's the same office setup. So they might have either done loads and loads of shots in a location and then they've gone back to it every time and drawn over it. Because sometimes it feels fine, the artwork, like it's just these are the people and this is the drawing. But some of the time it feels like the characters, like 2D characters floating on a photo 3D background. Doesn't quite work. But it originally started as a Webtoons. And I think I mentioned to you guys before that we start recording, especially to Tom, sometimes Webtoon stuff feels like it treads water a lot.
Okay.
Like it's not, the pace is quite slow because you've got that scrolling format. It's not like everything's coming at you 100 miles an hour. If there's a panel of 2 people talking, in a more conventional comic, you'd have three word balloons in the one panel. In this, they break down every one of those interactions to sort of like, here's that character talking, here's that character talking, here's that character talking. So you've got that on the scroll to interact with it. It's just a different way of doing.
Yeah.
Essentially, the story, apparitions have started appearing, and you get like this ghostly message that tells the person what their name is, the fact they're going to go to hell, and they've only got a certain amount of time left. That could be days, months, years. And no matter where you go, you can't run, you can't escape from it. On that time, when that time comes around, these supernatural beings manifest up, rip into you, and then leave behind like a burning, smouldering corpse. And when I first thought, oh, is that going to be the theory of them trying to basically work out why this has happened? But it actually focused on like a societal, how would society deal with this? What would society play out as? So you get events like, obviously, it goes into unrest straight away. So it's set in South Korea. There's like religious sects popping up saying this is the reason why this is happening. Another one goes, no, that's not the reason. And essentially, everyone's kind of like on top of one another saying, why is this happening? Why are the people going to hell? And if people are like a kind of Daily Mail thing, if someone gets killed like this, they deserved it. They were doing wrong.
Right.
That's why they're dead. So, and if this does happen to people, that's fine because they're sinners, and it's just backing up the fact that you shouldn't sin.
Christ, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, like anyone, but also plays out in the story. I don't want to spoil too much. Some of the people that die haven't done anything wrong. So there's sort of questions of like, what the fuck is going on? It's interesting. There's one of the early ones. It happens to a woman and she's got 2 kids. She's a single mother, and one of the religions pay her to go on TV at the time it's going to happen. And whatever happens to her 2 kids are going to get loads of money because the religion wants to film what's going to happen. But obviously the police and the authorities are not too mad on this, because if this just comes out and it's real, most of them don't believe it's true. But if this does play out on TV, everyone's gonna go fucking nuts. Because if you see demons popping up on TV, it's kind of gonna throw your worldview into a bit of a nosedive. And you go along with one of the protagonists at the start is a police detective who's lost his wife in a senseless murder by some junkie, and he's a single father. And the story, fairly close to the start of the story, the person who commits the murder he gets imprisoned on an insanity plea, and after a few years he's let out, and that comes into a play heavily into the story. I didn't realize, like I said, this was this is on Netflix now, this series.
Okay, I'll give that a go.
So you can watch the live action. I've not seen any of it. I probably will get stuck into it at some point. But I was interested to see where it goes. I mean, there's a massive cliffhanger at the end of this first book. And I've no idea where this is going to go, which is quite interesting. But usually you think to yourself, well, they could do this, they can do that. And this, I have no idea. So I'm very interested to see where the series goes.
And is that free to read then?
I think it's free to read on Webtoons. Yeah, you can certainly go on that and check it out, see if it's your cup of tea. Maybe I should have read the Webtoons before I bought the book, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, story of our lives, man. That is. Yeah.
So check that one out. Hellbound.
Good stuff, man.
They're Hellbound.
Brilliant. That's it. I think we've all recommended.
Well done.
Yeah.
Cool. Yep.
And that's the end of the show. I've got my bit of spiel that I've got from Vince to read through here.
Good.
So thanks to the guests, Tom and Zach.
Yeah,
cheers,
good
fellas.
stuff, guys. Yeah, thanks for educating us and prompting me to download this app, Tom. And thanks, Sam.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, always a pleasure, man. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you again. Yeah, be good.
If you want to reach out to us in the pod, get those competition entries in, you can email us on awesomecomicspod@gmail.com, Twitter @theawesomepod, facebook.com/awesomecomicspodcast, or awesomecomics.podbean.com. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. Where else can they listen to us?
We're on Pod Too Lazy to Eat Pussy. That's a Larry David quote, by the way.
Where can we find you, Tom?
I mean, you can find me on Twitter.
He's not too lazy.
No, I put in the time. You can find me. You can find me on Twitter at this chucklehead, and
check out some of Tom's work on Blender. Which
yes, you can find it on Twitter, can't you? You're posting it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Zach?
Awesome. I'm at Monstrous Comics on I think Twitter and Instagram, and you can read my stuff in the Phoenix if you're so inclined.
Good. It's good.
Yeah, look out for the news story. Do you want to remind us what that story's called, Zach?
Oh yeah, Dragon Guard.
What a good
Keep an eye
name.
out for that
Cracking
minute
name. And also, go to the Phoenix YouTube and see how to draw monsters. And if your kids are annoying, then get them to draw monsters. It'll shut them up for a bit. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true.
Do that.
You can find me on Twitter at Vanguard Comic, and you can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com. Even I fucked that up. My own thing. Tony, where can we find your stuff?
Patreon.com/tribute press. Thanks to everyone who is a patron to that. We've got something been written by Posey Simmons. We're very proud of coming up soon. So, she's written us something which you might surprise you a little bit about Posey. But wait till you see it. Yeah, if you're a patron, you'll get to see that. Yeah, good.
And there's one last shout out. Vince, hope you get better soon, mate.
Yeah, get well soon, man.
Yeah.
Everyone tweet at Vince, get well soon.
Yeah.
Get well soon.
Yeah, if you know where he lives, pop round his house.
Yeah.
So he's laying in bed like half sick, delirious, and his phone keeps going off and annoying.
Yeah. He's still got a lazy on, though. You know what he's like. He's a player, isn't he?
Right, and I think we offer them a great week. Have a good old time. Hopefully we'll see you on the Drink and Draw.
Yeah, come along Friday because it'll be a chuckle. Yeah, I think hopefully Vince will be better and we'll all be there. Yeah, larking about. Yeah, it'll be good.
Up.
Yeah.
And I can't remember how Vince starts his last bit.
He always does like a "we all love you, stay safe" thing, doesn't he?
Yeah, I say I don't love people.
And he goes, what do they say? They got us. Oh fucking hell, I can't remember how he lays up. Stay awesome, basically.
Yeah, so everyone say, stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
That was fucking shite.
We have a countdown.
I'm ashamed of us. Good. See you all later. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
See ya.
Do 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 do.